folder of things that I want to read at some point. I will admit I don't really get to it that often. But I think volunteering, I serve on 2 different boards, and I think that's how I feel like I stay engaged, and I'm cross-checking their efforts to make sure that they're doing best practices, and you know, always challenging them to do what I wish I had time to do in my own job, I think. So yeah, I think just staying engaged in some way, and not only being focused on your one professional role, but doing a few other things on the side.
I love attending conferences, the forum and NAFSA, because they provide that opportunity to step back from the busyness of the daily routine and reflect, and also talk to people who are involved in similar things. Recently, just a couple weeks ago, I was at the forum in Chicago and took a pre-conference workshop with David Schallenberger, who was my advisor when I was here. I love David. I was interested in the topic, but I have to admit, I saw David's name and was like, go to that one. But it was great. We spent a whole day looking at assessment and looking at the forum standards on assessment, and that's something that we need to focus a little bit more on. SES, Brody actually helped us out a lot with moving our evaluation system over to an online platform called Rate My Study Abroad. And I think that's an amazing step in the right direction for assessment on programs, but really digging into the quality of the experience on the program is a much more comprehensive endeavor, and that workshop will help us to do that over the summer. But I have to admit, we're so busy a lot of the times, we really feel like a startup. We're up 30% for this summer over last summer, and probably up about 30% over our fall numbers over last year. So with that much movement in the organization, it's really difficult to focus on anything but like buckling our seatbelts and holding on, and you know, sometimes I feel like my job is like whack-a-mole, you know, that game in the arcades where a thing pops up and you sit down and just spend all day like hitting things down and don't really have enough time to like look at the horizon and see what's coming a little bit farther away. But that's a goal of mine, is to be a little bit more engaged in the field and be more a part of current conversations, and be a little bit less reactionary. And we're getting there, but there's excitement in what we're doing and where we're at as well. Presenting at conferences also presents the opportunity to really dive into a particular piece of international education. We're putting together a proposal for NAFSA 2014 in San Diego that looks at an experience we had in Thailand where Bangkok flooded, and our program there was a temporary evacuation of students, which really meant that we didn't know when the program was going to start again because the campus was flooded. The students were safe, so they were just kind of hanging out on the periphery waiting for the university to reopen. And some of them got to complete their semester and some of them didn't. So we're diving in and looking at emergency procedures on programs and evacuations and how to help students continue to have a solid academic experience when programs are disrupted. So this is a nice opportunity to look at it and to really be a part of the conversation in the field, but sometimes it takes something like NAFSA or the forum or something big to give us the opportunity to step back and really focus on something important.
So I guess in general, I think research is probably, none of us are doing research. And so more, if anything, it's doing some of the contributing best practices and getting back to the field. I think it's probably more realistic for a lot of people in our similar roles.
Great, thank you. So before we open up the conversation to everyone else here in this room, we often hear at S.I.T. that networking is the key to advancing a career, and you all touched upon that in your answers about how you use your networks to move from different positions. But for some of us, it can be a little challenging to put yourself out there initially, especially if you're in a new area or just new to the field. So could you all speak to how do you build and then sustain your professional networks?
I think just by being an S.I.T. student, you've already begun to establish your network. I was hanging out with Kevin Brennan recently. Some of you probably know Kevin, and he was talking about the Peace Corps network and the S.I.T. network, and he said that he used to think that the Peace Corps network was really the strongest network in America, and now has come to think that the S.I.T network is even stronger than the Peace Corps network. It's true, you meet someone who's a fellow PIM, and all of a sudden you start playing like the name game, and you realize you have lots of connections, and you might share similar interests. And even when I look at a resume that comes in for an S.I.T student, we may be totally different PIM years, but I'll give that person an interview. You know, I know the theoretical background that they're coming to me with, and I have a lot of faith in that. And so, that's part of it.
I also think this S.I.T network is it's better than Facebook. It's so my two interns in my office are both S.I.T. IE students, Renato and Lisa George. I don't know if you know them. And I just trust them completely. And the assignments that I give them to do are way too assignments. They're not filing. They're not. What did I used to do way back when? Answering phones. I mean, they're doing things that are needed by a very busy office, and I trust them to completely do it. So I just asked Renato to teach one of my classes. I told him I'd like you to teach this subject. It was one sentence, and he completely designed it. Did not show me the design before we taught the course, and did a great job. And I guess what I want to say is that I just trusted him because I trust the training that happens here at S.I.T. And I have in the job that I have now, I heard about it from an S.I.T. colleague. I think that we end up just hearing about S.I.T. colleagues, and there's somehow this instant, you're gonna get me. I'm gonna get you. Like there's this shared understanding that the classes that you took or the eye-opening experiences that you had, I did too, and we have this unspoken link that makes us mutually trust the education and then perhaps trust the work ethic as well. At least that's been my experience. So I think this S.I.T. connection, I don't use it in the sense that I don't send out on a link like I'm looking for work or something like that, but I do let my S.I.T. folks know when I'm looking for something or interested in something, and it's just come back to me that way.
My piece of advice would be you have this opportunity with the Pioneer Valley area. There's so many institutions and international education organizations right there. Boston's only 2 hours away. I know it's very easy to get kind of consumed with what's going on here, but if you can commit to going and doing 1 or 2 or even 3 informational interviews, our field is really wonderful about that. I always have students contacting me, asking me if they'll give me, if I'll share a half an hour, an hour of my time, and I really make time for that because people, in particular like SITers, but actually everybody in our field has done that for me, made the time to sit with me and let me ask questions and let me figure out their story, and that's networking, you know, because then you make a connection with that person and you get to walk into CIS Abroad's offices and see what it really looks like to see. And do you guys still do those field trips? Yeah. But, you know, and then to take a trip to Babson and get onto a campus and get into an Education Abroad office, I think those informational interviews are really, and what they'll do is they'll say, oh, you should talk to this person and this person and this person, and then you have 3 more contacts. So I would highly recommend you do that.
Do you all have any questions or?
Hi, I'm Vila Alba, and I'd like to ask, in the roles that you've been in, can you share an example of something that you were not prepared for, that perhaps S.I.T did not prepare you for, or your career experience did not prepare you for, and how did you manage that?
Speaking really honestly, like I think I have a really strong academic background, but I don't have a management background. And right now, Claire and I were just talking about sales team, and then 20 site directors that report to me. And it's a little bit difficult. I wish that I had more of a background in leadership and management, and I could use more training on how to work with people. You know, we get a lot of that here at S.I.T, so I think it gives us some skills, and I think I've done a decent job of nurturing the best qualities in people, but I could have done a lot better along the way, I think, with even a little bit more management training.
Yeah, I think I would add to that just sort of some of the business background, some of the business skills, because business is a piece of international education for sure. So I think when I went straight from S.I.T to my practicum, I had a program provider that was it was a for-profit, trying to make money, you know, and they're talking about students as applicants and revenue and all these things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we're supposed to be talking about the learning. You know, it was like this really big culture shock for me, and I struggled with it for a bit, but actually I was able to just capitalize on that and say, okay, here's my opportunity to get some business skills and to really think about it from that perspective and make a shift in that way. But I think that that's something that I feel like I can always be doing more of, because it is managing, it is running an office, it is balancing a budget, it is projecting numbers. You know, that's a big piece of it.
I didn't take any finance classes here. Are there still budgeting? Yeah. I didn't take them because they sounded really boring. And I just figured if that comes up, I'll learn it on the job. So I'm learning it on the job. But I'm managing a really huge budget, and it's just me managing it. Like, I can't ask anyone else to help me manage it. They hired me, and this is one of the job descriptions, and I was like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, I can do it. I mean, I didn't say that in the interview, I acted like, yes, of course I can do it. But I am intimidated by managing this budget. I do it. It's not my strength, and it's not when it's time to do the nitty-gritty with the budget, it's like the last thing on my to-do list. So I'm not sure I should have taken it at S.I.T. I enjoyed my learning here, and at what class would I have had to sacrifice in order to take that budgeting class? So I think I should probably take one now. On the other hand, I am doing it. I'm hitting the ground running, and it's working. I'm making it work. So I guess both are true, that I'm getting on-the-job experience and I'm managing it. On the other hand, a one-credit course somewhere at a community college would be great, probably, for me to say, oh, really? That's how you do it? Not the way I'm inventing how you do it?
Yeah, I think there's constantly moments where you're learning on the fly, and definitely the finance end of things and the business side of things. I think we're educators. That's why I think we all got into this program, or otherwise we would have gone into an MBA program or something like that. I mean, I think all of our hearts are in education, and so for some of us, I think that management probably comes somewhat naturally, so that maybe isn't why we focused on management courses or whatever it may be. But this is really a business, and Global Roots has a nonprofit and a for-profit side of it, and like balancing that and thinking about the ethics around that, and seeing how other organizations function who are set up similarly, and just constantly cross-checking yourself on those skills that you might not have. I'm constantly creating like bizarre Excel sheets that I think are gonna help me, and then all the formulas disappear because I saved it wrong or something like that. But I think that's definitely one of the things that I don't know if I would have taken a class here. I think I agree. I think I would prefer to have my head be in more of the exciting stuff at S.I.T, and take that one credit community college class.
Or use your interns.
Use your interns. I think another thing is just keeping up with technology. I know that, the world has changed, it changes every day, but just, learning how to time management skills, I think, are a huge one for me right now. Like, do I answer the phone? I have a home office. Do I answer that phone at 8 o'clock at night when I know that's a parent who really wants to speak to me about their child's visa? and they need to know by tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. or is my time more valuable than that because the next morning I'm going to be frustrated that I worked till 10 o'clock that night. So I think time management and learning about when to check your email and when not to, and that work doesn't have to be a 24/7 thing, even though that is kind of the expectation these days, especially coming from graduate school where work is 24/7.
I wanted to kind of follow up on this question a little bit, because a lot of you guys are talking about some of these hard skills that maybe you had to learn on the fly. I'm wondering what strategies are you able to use that convince people to kind of give you an opportunity to have these positions without already kind of having those hard skill experiences. I don't know about other people, but that's something I feel like I've been bumped up against a lot. It's kind of that whole catch-22. So what kind of strategies have been useful as far as being able to gain that experience, convince people that you deserve an opportunity in a sense?
I think it's confidence, in the way you're presenting yourself, and even if you have to be transparent about the fact that you don't know this, but I am very willing to learn and I'm ready to learn and I have all these other skills that are on the outskirts of this gap. But I also think people really appreciate when you acknowledge your weaknesses. That self-awareness is really important and really demonstrates somebody who has a confidence level. So I mean, it's not a concrete example, but it's sort of.
Ask for feedback after interviews too. I was like one of 2 in 3 positions last year that I didn't get, and like every time it was like a knife to the heart, but every single time I put my foot in front of the other and I asked for feedback, and 2 out of the 3 times it actually was really helpful feedback, and I think that I acknowledged the areas where I knew I was underqualified, because you're always either overqualified or underqualified. There's never going to be a position that's just perfect for you. And so, asking those people who you might only get to meet for an hour, or maybe you meet them for a week of interviews or whatever it may be, they're going to see you differently than your advisor saw you or than your cohort saw you, and so ask for feedback from all of those characters, how you can grow.
I think related to that, but you don't know what the other scenario is. You might have been up against 300 applicants, and maybe they're looking for a very specific skill set, and so I agree that asking for feedback is key, because it might even just help your ego a little bit, It helps you grow too.
Being passionate and knowing what you're good at, being able to speak to your skills and your strengths, and also assuring people that though you may lack certain other skills, you have the desire to do whatever it takes to make it happen is important too. Just a willingness to learn new things, to put in the extra hours to learn them, and if you're really excited about learning those things, being able to articulate that's really important too.
I think when I've been on interviews, the hiring committee is always often full of other educators. And they're not even that interested in probing my hard skills, because they're not that interested in the hard skills. I think they mostly want to hear, are you going to be able to learn this or do this? And because I think I can learn something new that I don't already know. And they don't ask me if I'm going to enjoy it. I think they mostly want to focus on the things that are interesting to them. And the things that are interesting to them are actually not finance and budgeting. And so I haven't been in an interview ever where they've really probed that area of me. I think they kind of brush it under. Like, let's move on to the fascinating, interesting things that you can bring our office. And by the way, can you do budgeting? Good, let's do it.
I have, though. I've been in interviews where, with education program providers that have asked like sales numbers and sales strategy, and and it started to feel bad. So it was like, okay, well maybe this isn't the right fit for me anyway, But those have been hard.
Or I had an interview where there's like the IT person, the human resources person, the community person. There was like 7 people in the room, and they each got to ask a question. And it was like, so I was like, okay, put this hat on now, put this hat on now, put this hat on. And you have to be honest. Like, there are some times where you have to go in with confidence and say, I don't know that skill, but I'm ready to learn. You don't want to lie outright, or you say, yeah, budgeting, I can do that. You don't necessarily need to say, I've never done it or whatever. But you have done it because you're doing your design and delivery. So, yeah.
I do have this one interview tip that I think is a good one that I learned from the former career services person here. She said, at the end of every interview, ask them, what did you hear me say that you think leads you to believe I could be a good fit for this organization? And what it does, I think, what she told me it does, but it seems to work, is that the very last thing they talk about is how you said something good that they liked, and they say it out loud to their colleagues because they're in an interview committee, so there's several of them there. And so they're like all talking about what they heard you say, and they're trying to say something different than their colleague did, because nobody likes to repeat. So then they start naming like 5 different things that they heard was good about you, and that's the last thing on their mind before you say, thank you, I enjoyed meeting all of you, and I look forward to hearing from you, and you get up, and they're like, oh, So I do have that tip, which is
Great.
what did you hear me say that could lead you to believe I could be a good fit for this organization?
I think that's a good note to move on to just socializing and enjoying some wine and cheese and chatting and.
Can I mention something?
Oh, sure.
We are actually hiring. I meant to send something to Sora earlier today, but we're hiring for so when I say it's me, I also work with a team, but Global Roots is I'm the only full-time person with Global Roots, and then we have other programs under a different name, Windsor Mountain International. So we are hiring for as early start date as May 1st, but it could be May 15th, it could be June 1st. June 1st would be the latest. Through August 15th, but it could turn into a full-time position next year because we're growing. So we're hiring for someone to come on as an assistant program manager, and it's basically doing everything from managing our summer programs, admissions, to developing some of our gap year programs that are coming up in the fall. So a lot of family liaison work, and then also some program development, and Spanish would be a plus, but not necessary. So yeah, so if anybody's interested, come talk to me.
CIS Abroad is hiring too. Over the past couple of days, Brody helped us get up 2 postings on the S.I.T. career listserv. They're not the most lucrative positions, unfortunately, but there's an internship on programs team, and there's also a position in the CIS Institute. So the CIS Institute is a marketing-focused position that really does involve more of the business side of things. It's really developing a network, nurturing that network in a specific region in the United States, tapping into the schools that are there. You live in that region, but there's a lot of support involved in it too. There are lots of trainings that happen in Northampton. There's a lot of guidance given by our reps who are full-time and have been doing the job for a few years. It's an interesting position if you're at all interested in that university relations side of thing. The programs team intern position is much more focused on kind of maybe the more S.I.T. side of things. What we look at is quality control, and we need to implement some new initiatives with our site directors, our on-site staff, and also we need to reassess the way that we do internships abroad and make some changes, and we hope to have this intern working on those initiatives. If you're interested, I brought some job descriptions so we could talk through it if you'd like.
There's also a customized programs internship opening up too, so.
But what programs team would be the best? They're actually probably more fun.
Yeah.
Can I actually pose a question to people in the room? Are you leaning one way or another, international student services, education abroad, something totally different, just to get a sense of, we should have asked this in the beginning.
I actually had a question, hopefully we close the question forum soon, but I was just trying to think, how do I phrase this? So looking at practicums, you know, you start to envision yourself in different positions. And you keep waiting for this envisioned position to come up, or this great opportunity to come up, and it doesn't come up. And so you're like, okay, I'll just look for jobs that sound interesting, and I'll just see if I can qualify for them. And you go and you send out resumes, and behold, I'm talking for myself, you get one. But it's not what you it sounds great, like an amazing opportunity, but it's not what you like envisioned for yourself. Although you are gonna get these hard skills and everything. So, did any of you have that situation, or can you speak to that just a little bit, or did you just get your dream practicum, off the bat?
No, I didn't.
I was like, was it your second choice or third choice? Just because I think that's where a lot of us are right now, stress level wise. It's not necessarily settling, but maybe not getting your first choice or your first pick.
I took the practicum here, and the day I signed the contract, I felt like crying because the money was so low. It was $12,000 for the year, and I had envisioned that I was going to graduate from S.I.T. and make more than what I was making before I started the master's degree program, because that seemed logical and natural. And the job itself was also very, very stressful, as you can imagine, being an ombudsperson in a campus where there are conflicting constituencies who have disagreements about how the campus should be run. But it's like life. When you look back on it, you say, oh, there was a design, there was a plan. It did fit. It did move me along. Like all the other choices you've made in your life, when you look back on it, you think that wasn't actually a mistake, that wasn't a detour, that in fact got me where I am now. But it's hard, isn't it? When you're like, oh, that's the offer? Mine was about money. Yeah.
I think it's, like I said, I quit and then I came back and, and I did really different things in between and sometimes, it's a year or it's 2 years. It's not the rest of your life. And so it's, it's really going to be really important right now and for the next few months, but when you look back on it, it will hopefully have taught you things. I think the main thing is just to make sure you're going to be learning something, because you don't want to be not learning anything. I mean, like I was the assistant manager of a $3 million garden center in Boston, Winston, last year, and like I learned so much about budgeting, and it was so helpful because I learned so much, and I learned about working, with people from all different backgrounds, and like that wasn't my dream IE job by any means, but I knew it was just going to be for a certain amount of time, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to learn what I need to get out of this to help me with the next steps. And when you learn how to deal with a budget that big, it's really exciting. So yeah, I think as long as you're going to learn something, even if it has nothing to do with what your dream is.
I think one of the things that Brody said about, excuse me, Brody. Joe. Joe said about when he was looking at resumes with different experiences. I think we're in a new generation, so that being 13 years at one institution, and you have to make the right decision and you're going to live your life there, we're in a different world. I mean, if you look at my resume, it looks pretty patchy too, but I'm proud of those patches, and I think obviously it's worked for me. So take it for a year, and if you hate it, find something else.
Yeah.
I think it's about laying a solid foundation for yourself, and the practicum is a nice opportunity to do something that is a little bit different. You have the rest of your life to be investing in your career, and this is a step in that direction, but I think you'll probably find, hopefully most of you find that, this is a small field, and you can advance fairly quickly once you build up some momentum. So now is an opportunity to really do different things and experience totally different things, because that's going to inform your career and it's going to make you better at whatever you do eventually for the long term.
There's this book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I think it's by Gerald Jampowski, but I'm not sure. And he says, path A is full of pitfalls and springboards, and path B is full of pitfalls and springboards. You can't go wrong with either path. You're going to have pain and joy on both paths. So choose, jump.
There's a question.
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Julia. I was just wondering, looking at the practicums, you have different things, and you were saying, go and do something very different. So the struggle is finding one that's in the field, and I came from the IT field already, and going back into it, but hopefully at a higher level position, but you never know what you're going to get, right? So the idea is, do I keep my contacts that I already have and continue in the field, or do I go off and do something completely different? then realizing then as well, if you're stepping into a higher level position, are you gonna have time to complete what you need to on your practicum while you're stepping into this whole new position? Because having been a manager, stepping into a new position, it takes you at least a year to get even into any kind of a groove in a new position. So the idea of doing that on top of doing work is kind of overwhelming. Did you guys run into that when you stepped into this position going, oh my gosh, I have to do all this research on top of filling this position?
I used to get up at 3 in the morning and write and then go to work at 8. But I'm a morning person. So. But I also finished my practicum in capstone and came back in 1 year. You know, I had focused on just doing it in the 1 year and then being done with it. You don't have to take that track. You could take 2 years, or you know, if you needed to. But yeah, you have to make sacrifices. You do.
I decided too that I wanted to do it in 1 year, and so I really disciplined my time. So I really scheduled, like, I'm going to do an hour a day after work, and I'm going to do 4 hours on Saturday. And I created a capstone team of 3 other people that were near me, a support team. We met every week, and we went over our goals. You guys did that?
Yeah.
We went over our goals. We set next week's goals, and because I knew with that accountability, I had to meet with my capstone team. It also kept me on track and on target. But I was very targeted that I was going to get this done in a year, and so it was the most disciplined I've ever been as an academician. And yet I enjoyed it. I didn't have those up all night experiences because I was methodical about getting it done.
If you're stepping into a role and you're flexible in what you could write your practicum about, what you could write your capstone about, then you might find that some really interesting ideas come your way that could advance the organization that you're working for. And so you might be able to find time within the working day, or you could just wrap it all together in a way where it's not 2 totally separate, compartmentalized pieces that you're trying to work on. It kind of happens more seamlessly than that. I've seen that happen for a few people at CIS over the past couple of years. I'm a little bit, I think I'm a romantic or something. I don't think I would have been able to, like, I just had these ideas that I wanted to kind of work out, so my path probably, you know, was more compartmentalized, and I had the time to do that. But if you really are looking at your career and building a career, and that's the priority, then some flexibility in what you write about will be necessary, I think.
Yeah, being an IE student, my 2 were totally enwrapped in each other. We're totally wrapped, so, you know, intertwined with each other. And I asked the board, what should I write my practicum on? Or what should I write my capstone on? And I posed the question to them, you know, where do you want this organization to go? And what don't you have time to do? And what don't you mind me spending 2-3 hours a day working on? And so, you know, all that research then went and helped the organization. So it wasn't necessarily what, you know, if I had put all the topics out there in the world that I might have written my capstone on, but I became very passionate about it and I made it work, and it sort of worked.